Half a day, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare our live stream and then we can go ahead and get started. So Hafide and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our press conference regarding education stabilization funds and how these funds will be used to benefit our community and especially our students and families at the Guam Department of Education. Today we have several special guests joining us, including our Governor Lou Leon Guerrero, Lieutenant Governor Joshua Tenorio, Superintendent John Fernandez, Deputy Superintendent Joe Sanchez, UOG President Dr. Thomas Kreis, GCC President Dr. Mary Okada, and I also wanted to recognize our GDOE team who worked very hard over the past several months on the PATH project, to include Al Garrido, Vince De La Cruz, Selene Higa, Joshua Blas, Michelle Camacho, Doris Bukikosa, and I also see Tamari Feguger and Margaret Cruz on the call as well. Without further ado, I would like to pass it over to our Governor, Lou Leon Guerrero, for some opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Isa. And what a great day, I think, to have with our partner, the Guam Department of Education. As you know, during this whole pandemic situation, federal assistance has been very forthcoming. And so we have gotten federal assistance, not just in education, but also in healthcare, public safety, public health, especially. And one of the things that we are very fortunate to have is the Educational Sustainability Fund. And this is a fund that is federally given, and it's about a $12 million fund. And it's the discretion of the governor. And so the lieutenant governor, myself, and Superintendent John Fernando, and also the other institutions, sat down and looked at how we could best use this and give these out to the students. And as a result of that, we were able to help minimize the cost of our students and families in terms of long distance, home learning and distance learning, which is one of the very essential measures that we are using in our island to continue on the education of our children, not just in the elementary high school, but also in the higher institutions of learning. So I'm very happy to have made that partnership with our educational leaders, and just want to recognize that the lieutenant governor has really been my representative and also the administration's representative in the campaign to help with our educational quality environment, not just the environment, but also the quality of learning that our children need and are receiving from our educational system. So I just want to say thank you for this opportunity, and also to again acknowledge the leaders in education, Superintendent John Fernandez, Dr. Mary Okada, and of course Dr. Kreis, for their leadership and for their also very real and practical thinking in terms of trying to get allocations and the proper resources, again, to support our educational endeavors for our children. So thank you for all that you do, and of course, the team and the staff of our educational team. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Next, I'd like to welcome Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio for some additional remarks.
Thank you, Isa. I want to just emphasize the great partnership we have with all of the three public educational institutions, because even with the response and recovery efforts for the pandemic, it has been the school health counselors and the social workers, and earlier the school attendance officers from the Department of Education that have helped us operate and respond Same thing with the nursing programs and the nursing support from the University of Guam and from the Guam Community College. And I think it was this partnership, in order to respond, has also expanded the capacity of all three institutions to prepare for the return and the planning for the return of face-to-face instruction for all three institutions. Because their nurses have been on the front lines, they have been doing the rapid testing, they have been doing the contact tracing and surveillance, and now involved with the vaccination effort. It really, that kind of experience and background, you really couldn't purchase in a expedient amount of time. And it really lends itself to the ability for the three educational institutions to prepare and try and get into the new normal, because we do have it's not as if we're going to be going back in time a year ago to how things operated, unfortunately. But with that expertise and the excellence of their employees, we really have been able to do so much. And then, of course, now going back to the primary missions of education, as the governor said, coming up, there have been a lot of problem solving and practical decisions in trying to roll out things to face-to-face. As an example, the Guam Community College and the University of Guam, the return of nursing instruction months ago, so that we can try and prepare additional staff for an additional nursing staff and nursing medical support to expand the public health response to the pandemic. That was a key thing, but it also gets us further along with the careers of people that are much needed in education. This $12.5 million that the governor has organized for support, as she said, is going to bridge the gap or to strengthen connections to online learning. And so the biggest chunk of it, $8.9 million, is going to be administered by the Guam Department of Education for all public school, charter school, and private school students. And as the state education agency, Guam Department of Education has been facilitating support for the pandemic response and for school operations to all the schools. And so there's a formula that the superintendent or his team can talk about later that will come into play when the $8.9 million in resources is divvied up. And of course, the Department of Education has criteria for that, and he'll get into that. But the private and public school, the private schools and the charter schools have allocated amounts that they're going to be able to be empowered to determine how these amounts are going to respond to the needs of their student populations. We've also provided $956,000 to the University of Guam to help offset all or part of student internet and online student fees. The same thing for students at the Guam Community College, which will receive $529,000 to do the same. One of the great partnerships that has been developed over the course of time has been PBS. And PBS University, which was developed in partnership with the Guam Department of Education, came up with content driven by school teachers and school staff to try and put programming on air to fill the gaps and to supplement the kind of resources that students had at home. And now with a $1.5 million investment, we believe that this is going to expand and improve the quality and the content of supplemental learning resources and topics to all students, both in the public and the private and charter schools. Additionally, there's other support that are going to work in conjunction with the Guam Department of Education's effort to step up or establish community learning centers. And in this regard, the Department of Youth Affairs, through their resource centers, and the Guam Public Library, through all of their 5 branches, are going to expand online services, online connections, hardware available for students to continue their learning, and to help supplement the effort that not only the Department of Education and the private and charter schools are doing, but also the institutions for higher learning. So there is a good, strong partnership. I think that this partnership will continue to expand over the next few months. We know that in the federal aid packages, there's going to be additional support for learning and for institutions of higher education. These are going to help further advance the mission of education on Guam and actually give our support to folks in academia to catch up. Because let's face it, we have a whole lot of time that we need to do to catch up, especially in the elementary and secondary schools, where no amount of supplemental learning can take the place of actual face-to-face regular learning. We're doing the best that we can, and we'll try and expand that, but we're pretty much in it for the long haul, trying to figure out what we can do to support the households and get learning back. So I do want to thank the partnership that we have, and to the people of Guam, I know that you've been very patient. I know it's been very stressful for a lot of families, and this assistance is meant to try and help you with the mission of your part also in supporting the learning of your children. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Next, I would like to welcome GCC President, Dr. Mary Okada.
Half a day and good morning to all. I'd like to thank the governor and the lieutenant governor for their support for the Guam Community College. You have been very instrumental in helping our students achieve the career and technical education that they've been looking to complete for the past several years. This is a time where Guam Community College is willing to step up and skill up individuals that need to either change their career or retool for the new jobs that they want to take advantage of as the pandemic continues. We also like to thank the superintendent and Dr. Kreis for their support as well, for all of the things we've done collaboratively together. It's been a very good partnership for all of us, and it continues to strengthen the institutions that we have. The funding that the college will continue to receive through different federal partners is always leveraged. And we are using these funds not only to provide the technology support for all of our students, but also to help build the infrastructure for GCC to continue distance education beyond this pandemic. So we are updating our strategic master plan for distance education, and hopefully sometime soon in the future that we can continue to offer more programs through distance learning. And so this additional funding that is provided to Guam helps to provide the infrastructure, and the framework for us to continue. So Sijus Masi to all of you. Thank you again, Governor and Lieutenant Governor, for your support.
Thank you, Dr. Okada. Next, I would like to welcome Dr. Thomas Kreis from the University of Guam.
Sijus Masi, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to highlight the partnership, and I echo President Okada's thanks to the governor and lieutenant governor, and to Superintendent Fernandez for the partnership. This has been really one of the positive things about this bizarre year, has been how cooperative we've all been about trying to get the people of Guam access to distance learning. So that's been really the focus, to reduce digital inequity for getting people access. And we all are aware too that it's, access is one thing, but then there are lots of other things that make distance learning possible, including a relatively quiet space to work, having enough equipment so that different people on for different reasons can connect. So those kinds of things. There are lots of different elements of affordability that this money, and particularly the governor's focus for this funding on getting people access to distance learning, has been helpful. It's also been great to be in a partnership with this group, but also with DODEA and with the Catholic schools and private schools about reopening plans. So we've had some very good interactions with DODEA. So we've got health people from DODEA coming to UOG tomorrow to kind of compare notes about reopening plans and how we handle things and so on. And we've done this with all of the different groups as well. So that's been really important too, to do as well as we can in terms of protecting our community while we enable some face-to-face education. And then I think also just to echo President Okada's comment about the value of all of this activity. And I was just on a meeting this morning with the administrators of the university to say there's some of this that's really beneficial to us. We're really pleased that we now have this huge capacity for distance learning at the University of Guam that we never had before, and we've always wanted to have, and now we've got it. And so there are elements of these kinds of distance learning things that we're going to take with us. So actually the quality of our education, the kind of hybrid stuff that we'll be able to do is much higher as a result of this. So there's some positive that's coming out of it. And then education in general, I mean, just helping all of our community to think about getting more skills, more education, take advantage of this weird time to collect more capacity will help us all in the future, figuring out new economic opportunities and so on. So thank you for the partnership, and thanks to the governor and lieutenant governor for their leadership through this really challenging time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kreis. I'd like to introduce our final speaker for today before opening for some questions, Superintendent John Fernandez.
Good morning, everybody. Again, would like to also thank the governor and lieutenant governor for their support. Obviously, with Dr. Kreis and Dr. Okada, we've been all in the same boat together, trying to get the community and our stakeholders through this difficult year. And I think it's been, it's been a tough and challenging year, but we've all had to be creative, and we've all had to continue to work to pursue our mission, even in light of the challenges. And I think it's been we've learned a lot. And the silver lining is that what we've learned, we will not have to abandon going forward. We'll be able to use that to our advantage to improve what we do for students on Guam. The process for getting to this point wasn't very easy. I mean, these are federal funds, which we are grateful for. But like the lieutenant governor said, it took some time because there are a lot of hoops and a lot of clarifications and things to work out with our federal partners. But at the end of the day, the team here at Federal Programs, with the Clearinghouse and the governor's office, and with our curriculum team, I think we've been able to maneuver and provide the clarifications and responses to move forward to get to this point where we can now put the resources to work. What we've been able to do in light of this pandemic year has been to initiate home learning or distance learning, and that's taken shape in two forms. One is online learning for those who had access to laptops and the internet, and then the other, the students who were in distance learning were able to do it through a hard copy distribution, which is not technology reliant, but more reliant on teachers and staff preparing and distributing lessons to families who would pick them up at school and then return them to be checked by their teachers, and also to provide support by phone or other means. It's been a challenging model with face-to-face not being available this past semester. We've had to have our students rely on either online or hard copy, and realizing that technology access was one of the issues that forced families to opt for hard copy. We've been pushing out a lot of the available equipment that we have within the schools, including the laptops that are available, and been providing them to our students. And we also have orders for additional laptops and tablets to be able to distribute. And so that's good news, to be able to repurpose those assets and to be able to have funding for more. But internet access has been now the major issue for a lot of families who either have school issued equipment or have their own equipment, but for whom internet access, particularly in these economically challenging times, may not be available or may have fallen down the priority list. So the goal was to working with the lieutenant governor and the team and the governor and her team. The goal was to find a way to address that home internet access, recognizing that we wanted students to be able to have the opportunity to interact through the synchronous classes being held by teachers during the week, and also to have the ability to communicate after classes, to do their work, to submit their work, and to receive the responses from their schools via technology versus having to go to the school to pick up and drop off their materials. So I think the issue for us is that we recognize that affordability is a big question, and through the course of designing this project, what we've done is worked to set aside funding that will go towards providing wireless mobile solutions for families at home, but prioritizing those families in need of support. And in our design, those families that fit into that priority category are those who we know are already participants in our Head Start program, are receiving public assistance through either SNAP, WIC, one of our public assistance programs, are households that are eligible for the unemployment assistance, and so forth. So there is a category where we've prioritized families in need for whom this assistance would help them afford internet or help provide internet service by these funds going to pay for that service. As part of this design, we're also looking for to leverage the population of our stakeholders by seeking a bulk rate discount for all those who may not qualify for that priority category, but still require online learning as part of trying to get through this year and possibly next year, depending on where we are with the situation. So these funds will be available. We were able to execute a memorandum of agreement, memorandum of understanding with the governor's office. Our procurement team is mobilizing to issue that formal solicitation soon. And in January, by the time we get back to school and hopefully back to face-to-face instruction, we will also be able to have applications distributed and received from those families interested in receiving this kind of support, and then being able to provide that support for the remainder of the school year and into the summer and beginning of next school year. At this point, based on the expiration of the grant, we're anticipating service until September, but of course, we are also looking for any opportunities to expand the program if needed beyond that point, knowing that even though there's a light at the end of the tunnel, we're not sure exactly when this pandemic situation will end. And also, we do plan to continue with online learning even after we exit the pandemic situation. I think just like President Christ and President Okada said, this is something that we do want to continue in some form or fashion, even after we get through COVID-19. This is not just for GDOE students. As the Lieutenant Governor said, as a state agency, we also support our private schools and our charter school. And so they will also receive a similar support based on the number of students that are enrolled and in need of those supports at their school. So the service that we will go out, the internet support that we are going out to procure will also be available to our private schools and to our charter schools. While I mentioned that GDOE would have a set of criteria for our families, that doesn't necessarily apply to the private and charter schools. They will be free to determine, how to distribute the supports to their families, and again, that'll help us to bridge the gap in terms of internet access at home. Before I close, the Lieutenant Governor also mentioned that this is going hand in hand with plans to improve internet access out in the community. And so we are working with the Lieutenant Governor and some of our partner agencies, as well as our schools. We are planning to initiate what we call our community learning centers at GDOE, which is about at full implementation, it'll be about 21 schools who will be able to provide after-hours support for students at the school sites, providing a space for students to work, providing equipment if they need technology at those sites, and providing internet access. So that is something that we would like to do long-term to enable those who are challenged with access to technology to have a place to go so that we can continue to support their interactions and their leveraging of technology as part of their education. And of course, Lieutenant Governor mentioned that even as our schools do that, there are agencies, including public libraries, including DYA, I believe, and I'm not sure if there are any I missed. I believe that those are the two key partners who will also be working with us so that we have a network of hotspots and centers around the island to serve all of our young people. And so with that, again, thank you, Governor and Lieutenant Governor, for working with us and thinking not just short term, but long term, so we can build the infrastructure for using technology and connecting our families across the island. So with that, thank you again.
Thank you, Superintendent. At this point, we'd like to open up for any questions from our media partners. Feel free to unmute and go ahead and ask your questions.
Yes, this is John O'Connor from the Guam Daily Post.
Hi,
Can
John.
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I got a few questions. Perhaps I missed it, but was an internet service provider already selected, or are you still in that process?
So right now we are prepared to initiate that solicitation, and that will enable internet service providers to compete for to provide the service to our children.
Okay. When do you plan to issue that solicitation?
Right now we are finalizing all of the procurement processes and documentation that would allow us to move forward. So we're hoping that we can do that. We're going to target for this week or early next week to push that out, given that it's Christmas on Friday. So right now, I think the only thing we need to do is just we've been working with the Lieutenant Governor's office and with Stephanie at the Lieutenant Governor's office to just make sure all the necessary steps are in place to allow us to go ahead and certify the availability of funding, which is what we've been able to do with USAID, and then move forward to make sure that we take the steps to start the formal solicitation process. And then what we're hoping to do is in January receive the responses from interested bidders, and then be able to award to be able to award for the solicitation, and then go through the final approval process so that we can begin getting the families the internet access that they apply for. The application process, I believe, will try to start before the end of this month at school, so they can begin that application process. And then, of course, early on in January, we'll continue that process so we can identify the families at each school that are requesting for service.
If the governor or lieutenant governor are still online, I'd like to ask when a decision might be made on authorizing the opening of schools.
Yes, thanks, John. Of course, we are tracking our numbers, and we're very hopeful that it'll soon happen based on, again, our community being vaccinated. So we're tracking and working with the superintendent and also the other Dr. Okada and Dr. Kreis, but we're looking at maybe January 19th, I think is what DOE.
Did the governor cut off?
Yeah, she's just a little. So yeah, that's we're working towards that, and I guess maybe I'll just add that this is all dependent on on monitoring the CAR score and all of the other factors that have been taken into consideration when she makes her decision. So we've been working with other school communities on when we would authorize, and of course, once we authorize, it's up to their individual governing bodies to determine the how and the when.
But will the decision come next year or before the end of December, before the executive order expires?
You know what? Stay tuned for that.
Okay, thank you. I had it off my colleagues.
Just say, John, obviously we're concerned about, Christmas, New Year's. These are times where families in a limited way may be congregating. So we do need to monitor the scores and the situation days and even up to a couple weeks after those key points in time. So I would tell you that we would be tracking this still the same date, but if the situation takes a turn for the worse, then obviously we would be on the conservative side and prioritizing safety first.
Thank you.
Any further questions from our media partners?
I had a couple questions. This is Tyler from KUAM. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I just had a couple questions. Can you please clarify eligibility requirements for the no-cost internet services, and how long will that be provided?
Joe, can I go ahead and have you provide the specifics?
Well, first of all, it's just to clarify further, it's actually everyone at some point is going to be eligible, so everyone can still submit on an application. But we are automatically prioritizing any individuals that have, pretty much any form of public assistance, whether it be Section 8, even Head Start. Students who have formerly been on Head Start. And others. So, they would just have to, that's volunteer that information if they wanted to use that as their priority indicator. Oh, inclusive of any
Okay, and
any
how long will
who have are taking advantage of the assistance, the temporary assistance for individuals who have lost their jobs or things like that. So if they're participating in the pool program, I believe that's another example.
And how long will these services be provided?
Right now, we're scheduled up until September. That's due to the closing out of the fiscal year. But we are hoping that over the course of the implementation, we have the ability to extend. So it's really just a matter of when the fiscal year closes, and not necessarily a matter of funding the amounts.
Okay. And then can we please get more information in regards to the bulk discount rate for those who may not meet eligibility requirements for the no cost?
Okay, for that
internet.
Okay, for that detail, I'm going to ask Mr. Algarito. He's the lead on the PATH project, and they worked out that particular language. Al?
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Yeah, we're very excited about this program. We believe that once the vendor is selected, that this bulk discount rate will be at an advantage and a rate that's probably not available to the regular public. So we believe that this would be something that our students who may not qualify necessarily for the full support through the program can apply and take advantage of that. So, and a lot of our specifications are going to be very worthy for education. The online access is really geared towards education, including whitelisted sites and so forth, that will allow our students to get quick access to the internet for each month.
Thank you. And then just one more. So I understand the reason for obviously expanding internet access, but in one of the meetings for school readiness stakeholder presentations, the superintendent mentioned that the goal is to have students back to school one way or another, not just for the academics, which is important, but also for the various supports provided, such as food support, behavioral services, and being able to assist those that may not have, that may be having difficulties at home. So seeing that there's no mandate for COVID vaccines and alternate modules of learning will still be an option come January, how does GDOE plan on further outreach for students living in difficult conditions?
So that's a pretty big question, but let me just, to tie it to this project, for instance, I would just say that even though it is our goal to return to, to be able to safely have face-to-face instruction for all students who want to be face-to-face, we're certainly not there yet. So our plans, even in the event that we are authorized by the governor to go back face-to-face, is to continue to offer all three models of learning, which means that we do have to include this online access project as part of trying to ensure that our kids have access to their education. So there definitely are students who have had trouble accessing their education. And we mentioned there are probably around 500 to 600 students who really we were tracking who have not been able to register or have not registered to come back to school. And that's a number that we have come down to over, from over 2,000 students at the beginning of the year. And so we are, through the use of various methods, including technology, we've been able to reach the other families. Hopefully, when we do have more students connected, that'll be an opportunity for us to figure out how to solve that access problem for more families and more students, and then be able to provide supports through better communication and so forth. So it's interesting to provide support in this environment because we're relying on distance learning models and through those distance learning models for us to identify situations that need support, whether it's any students out there who might be seeking help, seeking counseling, or parents. It's usually through those communications online, even hard copy. We have stories of families or parents or students, writing notes on their hard copy materials, situations at home that then we can mobilize to address. So hopefully this internet access initiative will enable us to have more communication with students who have been limited because of their limited access to technology, and we can provide that support, through that method until we are able to get them back face to face in school.
Do we know how many students are still unaccounted for this school year and how you guys plan to track them down by the start of the next semester?
So again, we have about 570 at last count, around that number, and hopefully we can continue to chip away. But it's been slower going recently because many of these students require home visitation. So we are working with the Lieutenant Governor's office, and as the environment improves, hopefully home visits will be authorized when it's safe enough to do so. So that's our continued effort. A lot of the students that we know are still out there and may not be interacting with their schools are those who face a lot of challenges in being being transported to be able to pick up hard copies, who have limited access to telephone communications or other types of communications. So again, when home visits are authorized and hopefully through the continued outreach to provide support for distance learning, we can find a way to make more headway into lowering the numbers of kids that we can't account for.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Tyler.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Any further questions? We have time for maybe one or two or any others.
Hi, yes, this is Jerry Partido from PNC. And how exactly will the home internet work? Will the families be given vouchers, or will special passwords be given? Or will they be given, special Wi-Fi devices? How does it work?
So we are, there will be a formal solicitation that will be issued for those who are going to compete to provide service. And what we are looking for primarily are wireless mobile solutions that could include, the devices as you mentioned, but the vendors are going to be able to propose, their particular, solution, and to, identify the cost for that solution as part of their response. And so the way the process is going to work in terms of administering it is that any family who is interested in applying, that application process will go to the schools, and it will be the schools who will who will primarily handle the application and the confirmation of eligibility and who's actually going to be provided, the internet support. Once that information is confirmed, that communication will be shared with the vendor, and the families then are able to go to the vendor to receive their support. If it's a device, they'll receive that device, and they will actually become customers of that vendor for the purposes of troubleshooting any issues, receiving any technical assistance, technical service as part of the internet access that they are going to be receiving. DOE's responsibility will be to, again, confirm who the participants are, communicate that with the vendor, and ensure that payment for the services are provided. So again, there's a lot more to determine, based on the proposals that we intend to receive, and how that whoever gets the award, how that process will work. But again, those are the primary distinct division of responsibilities that will be set up. So families will interact, first with the schools, and if they are then able to receive the service, they become customers of that provider, will receive the support and be able to take advantage of any of the customer service and any technical assistance that they may need as part of the service they receive.
And last question, will the plan to have special Wi-Fi hotspots still push through?
So just to clarify on that, I mean, when we say hotspots and Wi-Fi, and I believe you're referring to the community approach. So we do plan to do that as a longer term solution. Remember, the internet access at this point is through September, possibly longer, but it is viewed as a temporary gap filler, to get through the pandemic situation. Our vision for the community learning centers is that as we get back to a more normal situation, we want to be able to provide opportunities and options for students who need internet access and who need support to access laptops and computers, to have schools in their community be one of the options, or one of the sister agencies who are also participating. So we want the schools to be able to be available after hours, accessible after hours, for students to know that there's a resource at the school that they can rely on for the continued support. And this will enable us to strengthen our school's role in providing, not just the normal classroom instruction, but also after hours community support for students, and possibly, for other activities as well down the road. So I don't know if the Lieutenant Governor wants to talk a little bit about the public libraries and DYA component, because they're a little bit different.
Right. So, part of this, Jerry, is trying to create, and I guess as all the educational leaders are saying, it's an opportunity to bring services and support out that never previously existed. So when we bring on the branch library in Dededo and the DY Resource Center in Dededo, it will be additional access to actually a place to go. Some of the people, some of the children are living in substandard conditions where maybe they don't have their own room, or they don't have electricity in some cases. And so by offering additional places for them to go to, the ideal that we're working towards is to have the place, but also to try and weave in some staffing. So I think there's going to be opportunities in the near future, especially for the people that are studying education. This is a future potential partnership with the University of Guam and their College of Education. Same thing, we've been working also with AmeriCorps members and trying to add on to their mission with the homework assistance. And in some cases, it might be even joining programs. So, Guam Community College has been doing a tremendous job trying to get adults to get their GED, or to do adult education. And it'll be wonderful if we can have a concurrent thing where the adults are able to get their instruction and their kids will be able to also get some help. Sometimes could be at the same location. So this is a good program we're piloting. I imagine that we're going to try and figure out ways to expand them. And it really is also in partnership with the mayors in the future to try and bring on community facilities so that we can bring in more people and they can have a place to go. So we have a lot, and especially the students in the public school system, A lot of kids are on, would it be free or reduced lunch? The entire school system, it's an indication of poverty. And this might be a way, we hope, which is going to bring these families into the modern century and really try and bring those facilities to them.